Guys, King of Charmander here, and I'd like to welcome you to a Pokemon you've obviously never seen before in a Go Battle League meta. You've seen him in the Kanto Cup, you've seen him in Open Great League, and you've seen him in Open Great League for probably every freaking season now, and you're probably sick of seeing it, but guess what? It's actually really good for the Retro Cup. I'm not going to go too much into it. It's a freaking Hypno, okay? Hypno has been really good. It's been really viable since the preseason. Has been one of the most viable safe switches in multiple different metas. And guess what? It's good for the Retro Cup. Pure Psychic type, Hypno does max out at around 2363. So it could be, you could actually use this thing for Open Ultra Premier if you want, or like Ultra Premier if you wanted to for like a level 51. But because the reason why it's so good in Great League, or just in Go Battle League in general, is because it has such a versatile moveset, does heavy damage confusion, and it's pretty bulky. So it has a high defense and stamina. Combine that with confusion, which chunks with its stab, same type attack bonus psychic, does a ton of damage, and like I mentioned, because it's so versatile, you can do a lot of damage. If you see a Hypno, you're probably going to keep you guessing. You're going to be like, okay, do you have Shadow Ball? Do you have Focus Blast? Do you have Psyshock if you want to spend Elite TM? Or do you punch everything to death? That is the answers Hypno gives you. Anyways, the reason why it does so well inside the reason why it does so well in the Retro Cup is because dark types are banned. So because dark types are banned, you won't see dark types, which is generally the like what, Sableye, Scrafty, the things that would normally like resist psychic types aren't going to give you a hard time in this cup. So because of that, your only threat is ghost types, and the only thing that really like threatens you as far as ghost types goes is like Shadow Claw, which is just like fast attack damage. In other words, Pokemon that have ghost type moves but aren't actually ghost types themselves. You're also weak to Bug, but Bug isn't as predominant in this meta unless it's Galvantula. It's probably like Galvantula is probably the only thing you'll see in this meta. It does resist fighting and psychic, so fairies are banned, but you can still use Charm, but like you won't, with the presence of other Hypnos, you probably won't see a lot of fighting, but you probably will see other psychic types, because psychic is actually very good in this meta. Again, what I mentioned before, lots of freaking charge moves, and combined with fusion lets you charge and lets you have your choice of whether you want to punch everything to death, or blast, or shock, or psychic everything to death. It's really up to you. Alright, here's the PvPoke.com rankings, and as you see here, Hypno ranks at number 4 overall. It's insanely powerful as a safe switch. In a sense, it's actually the most powerful safe switch, because unless you've spent a bajillion dollars on a Lickitung, well, considering Lickitung raids aren't even out, well, yeah. Unless you spend a bajillion dollars on legendary raids right now, and you are literally trying to get 29,600 candy, or 29, whatever the hell number you have left to get a Lickitung XL, you're likely not going to see Lickitung XL. So because of that, Hypno generally is actually the most powerful safe switch in the Retro Cup. As you see here, the reason it's a powerful safe switch is because it's a powerful lead as well. It actually does good in all positions, with only its key losses happening against really thick things like Lapras, etc. But if you commit 2 shields, you can actually take out Lapras. You could also take out things like Frostless, Altaria, etc. Again, if you're willing to commit shields. So yes, you lose against water types and really thick things, but like if you're willing to commit shields, you can actually win some of those matches. Altaria will tend you to the next dimension hour, so just be careful. Now, the reason why Hypno is so good is because you do resist Medicham XL, which happens to be one of the most practically the most powerful XL in this meta. You beat Deoxys defense. You can also beat Alolan Marowak. So if you could Shadow Ball Alolan Marowak, you can take back the matchup. You also beat things like Deoxys defense, Abomasnow, Cresselia. So you have a lot of options. Like Hypno is a great mon because it has a lot of coverage against. It can beat a lot of things. It can beat a lot of things. It resists a lot of things. And even though you're technically weak to it, like Alolan Marowak, you can Shadow Ball it to death. So that's what makes it so good. It's also not a bad lead. In the lead, Hypno ranks at number 8. So in Hypno, as you see here, beats everything as I mentioned before, because that's how it works in the 2s. As a switch, Hypno actually is very powerful as well. As you see, what I mentioned before, it is, if you take out Lickitung, it's actually the most powerful safe switch in the game. Yeah, it's actually the most powerful safe switch, so as you see here. And you can play around with Hypno a lot. Your Hypno will force your opponent to do the guessing game to where, like, does this guy have Fire, Double Punch, or Shadow Ball? So you can keep your opponent guessing with Hypno. There's a lot of things you can do. As a closer, Hypno isn't the greatest thing in the world. Hypno kind of needs shields to be effective, like our energy, because if you don't have either one, you will get this. You can get like Shadow Bone to Alolan Mirac or Shadow Ball, and as you see, things like Frostus will Shadow Ball you to Oblivion, and things like Driplim, because Driplim and Jellicent, you'll get Shadow Ball to Oblivion. It's gonna hurt a lot. But overall, still very powerful, and again, very powerful as a lead to switch. Keep and give it shields, and you can do a lot of things with it, and it's going to keep you guessing in the retro. Alright, so we have Hypno here. As you see here, we got Hypno with 4 different forms, as I always... Oh yeah, I forgot. If you would like to donate to PlayBeatPoke.com, please consider doing so. As you see, I got 4 forms of Hypno. We did the add and compare. Here's Hypno with rank 1, so this is a rank 1 Hypno, and then you got a whole bunch of other IVs. So, just in comparison. High defense... High defense, high HP, and then you got the high attack one. Can this thing really go to 1500? Oh god, it can. My gosh, jeez. How much damage is it? I'm pretty sure that flips something, but hey, you know what? I don't know anything until we hit the battle button. So we hit battle, and then as you see here, holy what? Huh? Really? How though? What? Dang, dude! You be doing hella damage! How about if it's max IVs, though? If you have a really thick bird... Oh, okay. So they fooled you, and they fooled me! Because if you got a hella high IV Altaria, Hypno with high attack don't budge. Okay, so you can technically beat it. You can beat an Altaria with a Hypno. Straight Thunder Punch. If you don't have a good IV Altaria. As you see here, you practically get annihilated by so many other matchups, so I would not recommend you do this. Anyways, as you see here, Hypno with 2 shields, not the best thing in the world now that I look at it. Well, it can take shields and it's going to take switch. It can take you shields or it's going to give you switch, either one. But as you see here, you have a lot, with the 2 shields, you have a lot of chance against Cresselia. Deoxys defense, basically just because you could Shadow Ball things to death. Unfortunately, Driplim will give you a hard time because it can debuff you, and Shadow Ball hurts a lot. Not only that, Driplim is also very thick, so if you try to Hadouken it, it's probably going to Hadouken you back. And you're probably going to either be debuffed or this thing's going to hurt a lot. And because it has Hex, it's also going to outcharge you, so you got to be careful with that. Dragonair, as you see here, with a Hypno with good defense, well, with high attack anyways, you could take out Shadow Dragonair. High attack Hypno is also able to take out Galvantula. The reason why you beat Hypno is because you have... You win CMP, basically. High attack, win CMP, etc. But how the heck did you... So you technically lose against Galvantula. Remember I mentioned Galvantula before because they straight lunge you? Well, it looks like a high attack Hypno can absolutely just destroy a Galvantula by straight confusing it down. Yes, you have to give up 2 shields, and yes, that's probably a really bad idea to do it, but hey, you know what? It happens anyways. So, as you see here, in the 2 shields, it gets kind of dicey. You're able to beat things like Jellicent, Lapras, etc. in the 2 shield with Hypno. If you also beat Frost, so you can beat Frost if you Shadow Ball through. However, Frost does outcharge you, so you have to really be careful. You beat Shadow Champ, Mantine, Alolan Mirac buries your body. Mewtwo, as we mentioned, if things have Ghost attacks, it's probably going to hurt you a lot, and Regirock can beat you. Or you can beat Regirock, as you see here. I'm pretty sure if that's a high IV Regirock, well, it's not that you can be with a high attack Hypno, but if you have a Regirock, I'm pretty sure you can beat Regirock, but like you're just gonna get outpaced. Well, it barely beats you. So if they have a high IV, well, I'm not sure, but just you generally lose against Regirock, but this isn't a bad matchup. 495 is not a bad matchup. As you see here, you literally lives with 1 HP. So if this is a really crappy IV one, or yeah, if it's a really crappy IV one, so say if it's like 10 attack or something like that. Let's see, I'm pretty sure you win. Yeah, so Hypno can win. Hypno barely beat. This is an IV dependent matchup, so don't worry about that. But as you see in 2 shield, beats a variety of things. If you can Shadow Ball through shields, it can probably deal heavy damage or give you switch, either or. A lot of plays you can make with Hypno. In the 1 shield, things get a little, like, as you start losing shields, though, it gets a little dicey. You're able to beat Obama with the Shadow Ball Thunder Punch variant. The only thing is, because you don't have Fire Punch, it kind of sucks. So there is merit for running Fire Punch in this meta. As you see here, you still beat generally the same things and lose against the same things. So the 2s and the 1 shields aren't very different. The only well, you do lose against Lapras. You do pretty much. Well, actually, I lied because you actually lose against Lapras in the one shield really hard. You lose against Jellicent. You also can lose against Galvantula depending on what your IVs are. But generally, you don't want to stay in a matchup with Galvantula anyway. So, assuming that like with a good IV one, you still have to bait. You can't go straight Shadow Ball. So if you try to you can't go straight Shadow Ball. So you have to be really careful. If they fall for the bait, it's gonna suck. So if you can't Shadow Ball through shields, as you see here, you do die. So that's a bad thing. As you see here, the 2 and 1 shield are very similar, but like I mentioned before, you kind of pick up some and you lose some. So you can beat a little Marowak, but it's once you go down shield, it becomes very bait dependent. That's why Hypno, as you see here in the mirror match, it gets really dicey because it's who baits who and who balls who. So that's basically what it is. Other than that, you still dominate lose against things like Altaria, Drifblim, Frostless. Generally, things like you lose in a 2 shield, pretty much same thing in the 1 shield. And you also have bait-dependent matchups. Still bait-dependent with Regirock, though. In the zeros is Hypno's worst position. So you don't want to have it in the zeros. It does surprisingly well, though, as you see here. Does beat a lot of things, especially if you have a high IV one. Just be careful of things that lick you down. And things like Frostless, just because Frostless, yes, if a Frostless has energy lead, it can take you out. So just be very careful. If you can't ball Frostless, if it gets the ball before you do or has energy advantage, probably can take you out. So just be careful. But you beat a lot of things in a closer. But like I said, be very careful depending on how your opponent has energy or not. If you have shield advantage, however, Hypno's a monster. As you see, high IV Hypno will beat almost everything in the meta except Lickitung. And Altaria, actually, in the 1-0s, Altaria can Dragon Breath you down, so just be mindful of that. As you see, a good IV Hypno is preferred for the Retro Cup. 2-0s, you don't have to worry about that, though, because you have 2 shields. So in the 2-0s, you beat everything but Lickitung. Well, you don't want to be in this matchup anyway, so just try to avoid it. In the 2-1s, as you see here, you still lose against Lickitung, but you beat everything else. So it's still very dicey. The funny thing is, you beat Altaria in the 2-1s, but you have to be really careful. So with Altaria, you have the double. As you see here, you could straight Thunder Punch. So just be very mindful because 69 seconds. If this Burb has energy, it can force your shields. Or if this bird has extra energy, it could probably take you out. So just be very careful with Altaria. It's thick, it's powerful, and like I said, the 580 rating isn't very dominant, so just be really careful. And that 2-1 is very strong. Again, Hypno's best position is as a safe switch or in the lead. I would safe switch into it and then start playing the bait game depending on which matchup you're up against. But generally, Hypno's matchups in the 2-1s are pretty much the same, except you don't. It's strongest in the 2 shield. Try not to put it in the 1 shield scenario unless it's like the 1-0s. Alright, so as far as bulk and breakpoints, so there's not really much relevant breakpoints. If you look across the meta, as you see here, even if I'm rocking the 2 shield, there isn't many things that will, like, there's not a lot. Like, a lot of the breakpoints you get are still matchups that you will still dominantly beat, or they won't really matter too much. For example, with Shadow Hypno, if you have a break, like, as you see here, the breakpoint with Shadow Hypno, with these 2 mons, as you see right here, with a higher attack, you'll still convincingly beat the Shadow version, regardless, in multiple scenarios. It doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter too much. Bulk points is a different story. It's kind of a different story. As you see here, if you have a high attack Frostless, Altaria absolutely like nukes you. Do not use a high attack Frostless. There's no reason to. As you see here, there is a specific bulk point against Dragonair. I wouldn't worry about this too much. Like I said, your odds of finding a Shadow Dragonair aren't really too high. You can see it, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. There's a lot worse things you should worry about, like Lapras and Lickitung, etc. As you see here, the bulk points of, even if you do have high bulk points for Shadow Champ, it's still gonna run you over. So bulk points aren't super relevant as far as specific matchups go. Frostless is so dominant, like I said, the basic thing you have to do with it, regardless of whichever IV you have, is basically save shields, get energy advantage, and you run over their line. That's basically it. So Frostless still, regardless of whichever one you play, as you see here, the bulk points don't matter too much, especially specific matchups. The only one that's really specific is this one right here. A high defense Flashless where the bulk point is 15 and 2, and then you have one specific bulk point. Don't worry about this though. So it doesn't matter too much. Regardless, I still give it an 9 out of 10. Like I said, basic strategy with Frostless, it's just as dominant as it is in the Holiday Cup. Give it shields, give it energy, it runs everything over. You blast, you'll dump everything under a bunch of ice like the Titanic, or you will ball out like an NBA basketball game where the Cavaliers get swept by the Warriors. I'm just saying. I am a Warriors fan, by the way, so yes. Anyways, Frostless is really strong. If you do have one, you should have one. It's been out for quite a while. It's had a spotlight hour, so if you don't have one yet, if you're considering building one, it's really good for the Retro Cup. So, and it's pretty available, so you'll probably see a ton of these things flying around everywhere just because it's so good in all positions. Again, if you do have, again, simple strategy. Save shields, give it energy, and then Frostless is the queen, and she will make you bow. Good luck in your Go Battle League sets. Hopefully you guys enjoy the Retro. Hopefully you guys are prepping for the Retro Cup, and this video helps you out, and I will see you guys on the next video. Also, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so yet.